Welcome to TechTalk, a technology-based webinar series where we are embracing technology to move your business forward. I'm Remya Warrior, the chair and the host of this show. And we hope this series will bring both industry partners and designers together. That's why the topic we choose are relevant to everyone. Today, our guest is our own industry partner, Nicole Heymer. Nicole is the owner of Curio Electro, a boutique web design agency specializing in branding, content strategy, and web design and development for interior design firms and other innovative businesses. She's been helping interior designers bring in more leads and increase their visibility online since 2011. Welcome, Nicole.
Thank you. I'm excited.
I've really been looking forward to this episode because I know I'm going to learn a lot of things new. So I do have a question for the audience. Do you currently blog on your website? Hopefully you can see the quick poll on it. Please vote. There's just a yes or no question. How many of you blog on your website? Okay, and it does say hosts and panelists can't vote. So, well, but Nicole, I can tell you I do blog.
Cool.
One more in. All right, so by the time, since we're waiting for the answers, I gotta say, Isabel has been godsend to me. I know she goes behind the scenes, but I really want to do a shout out to her. She is so amazing, and she has the technology right in her palm. Things that take me like an hour to do, she will do it in 5 minutes and she gets it to me. So I'm so glad and so happy that I have her on my side. So all right, we're going to close the polls and we're going to try to see if we can get an answer. Okay, I think Isabel, I don't really see that. So do you, Nicole?
No, I don't. But maybe,
no. Oh, no one voted yet. Okay, please, everybody vote.
Maybe we can grab those answers more in the middle or towards the end.
Okay, so hopefully, hopefully either I can see it or Isabel can see it. So everybody please vote right now. All right, so Nancy Connor says no. We haven't, so the poll is still on.
All right, so we'll collect those answers.
All right, so we have the poll going on for maybe another minute or so. And then after that, Isabel is going to close it and then we will know the answers.
All right, should we get started?
Over to you, Nicole.
Okay, awesome.
She's like so excited to get started. Right.
I just feel like, let's get the thing going. Okay, all right, so it's gonna look weird for a second while I share the screen. All right, can everyone see that?
Yep.
Excellent. Okay, so I was given an introduction. Like Remya said, I am Nicole Heymer. I am the owner and principal designer for Curio Electro. We are a small agency, and she gave you the rundown on what we specialize in. So it's branding, it's content strategy, and it's web design and development. We work with all sorts of clients, but our niche is definitely interior designers. As I was telling them before the webinar, my very first client back when I started was an interior designer. And the way that happened was years and years ago, I was actually an office manager for an interior designer. She became my first client. And then over the years, she has grown. She has multiple employees now, and she's still my client. From doing that first website for an interior designer, I got referrals. People found me online because of that. And then, several years ago, I really embraced it. I know a lot about your industry. It's something that we understand. So I am an IP, an industry partner for ASID New Jersey. And that's why I'm here to talk to you about this stuff. Today, we're going to be talking about the strategy of blogging. So answering some really important questions like, why bother doing it? And I know that that's That's a question that people have. It can feel a little bit, if you're not getting any sort of visible results from it, it can feel frustrating and it can be easy to let it go. What kind of content is worth putting out? Because nobody wants to waste their time. It takes too much time to create good content. And how do you actually do it? What are sort of the foundation things that you need to use your content to its fullest potential? So we're starting with why. Number one, your content helps define your brand. I will start by talking about what a brand is, because that can be a little muddy. You know, there are a lot of definitions for that. Your brand is what people believe to be true about your business. So that starts with, I always say, like, you probably have a brand, you know, you just might not have decided what it is. It might not be what you want it to be. People might not be saying the things that you want them to say about your business. You start by defining it yourself and then living it for so long and so well that people talk about you in that way. And you are able to define, you know, to create the narrative of what your brand is. It is the perceived value of your business. So there we get into pricing, you know, like, what is the perceived value of what you do? Because if it's not in line with what you're charging, you're going to run into problems. It's what you're known for. So that could be any number of things. It doesn't have to be just a certain style. It doesn't have to be like, oh, you're known for doing, you know, contemporary only or something like that. It can be an array of things. It's your reputation. Like, do you get things done on time? You know, are you known for being amazing with knowing all the right contractors? Like, what are you known for? It's the things that make you special, and most importantly, not interchangeable with all of your competitors. So part of understanding your own brand is understanding the brands of your competitors so that you can pull yourself apart from them. The main thing that I like to communicate with defining a brand is that if you don't give your potential clients something to grab onto, something that defines you in relation to the other people that they're looking at, then all they can do is compare on price. You've left them no other choice but to compare on price. And I think we all know that is the last thing that you want, because you're not looking to be the cheapest, probably, right? Unless that's your business model, to do more, less expensive projects, which is a perfectly valid business model. You just have to define it, right? So, as Seth Godin says, your brand is whatever your customers say it is. And the way that they say it is something is by you defining it first and explaining to them what it is in a million ways. Where does content come in? Content allows you to tell the story. So if you are defining your brand through, it could be any number of things. It could be your process is like really special. It could be your pricing structure is different. I mean, do not make decisions based on, well, it seems like everyone is doing this. Don't make decisions based on that. That's the last thing you want to do. You want to pull yourself apart in some way. It could be that you add some sort of special touches in any way that you can imagine, you know, to the project, to the presentation at the end, whatever, surprising details in any possible way, an expertise in a particular style, a particular time period, a combination of styles, like a fusion type thing, whatever it is, and we can name more things. You've got to define your brand. So content, instead of just talking about your brand in your copy and just saying it like, oh, this is what we do, this is what's special about us, which you do need to do, content allows you to tell the story in a much more robust way. It's like supporting evidence for what your brand is. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that, but hopefully that's a somewhat clear idea. So if you're saying that your let's say your process, you've got some special thing about your process. If you're telling stories about that process in action in your content, that is supportive evidence. It makes it real. Another why, very important why, the goal is to make something happen. The goal is not to have people reading your content, although that is part of it. The goal is for them to do something after they read your content. And that is something that we all have to keep in mind when we're creating content. If we are not offering them what is called a call to action at the end or next to or within our content, then it's a wasted opportunity. Because if you create a blog post that really like sets the world on fire and gets passed around by a bunch of people and really gets in front of like your ideal clients, that is amazing. But if you don't actually capture their information or get them to do something, it's lost, you know? So it's something that we really have to think about. Great content does not live in a vacuum. It's an important piece of your sales funnel, meaning from when they find out that you even exist to when they start learning more about you and your content is part of that, to when they actually contact you, to the next step, like the process where they go through and actually buy your services. And by the way, I know that we have some IPs on this call, and I'm going to be giving mostly interior design examples, but I really believe that hopefully you can apply these strategies to your business. You should be able to twist them a little bit and make it work for you. I know that I can. So, all right. What are we going to be talking about? We're going to be talking about, and there are a lot of different types of content that we could be talking about. I have chosen 3 to discuss today. One is intention-based content, one is case studies, and one is value-based. So, and we're saving our questions for the end. I don't know, did Remya say that?
No,
so you can throw,
say that.
Yeah, you can throw them into the chat as you feel you want to. You can do whatever you want, and then we'll just address them at the end. Okay. Intention-based content. This is so interesting. So intention-based content is the concept of content that is created to address the needs of someone who is at a certain place mentally. And the place that we want them to be in this case is about to purchase interior design services. So there are certain things that someone is typing into a search bar when they are close to purchasing versus someone who is more like in the curious phase, the DIY phase, like it's a totally different place, right? So they're thinking something like, help me choose, or how do I get started with this? Or like, I need a solution, like this is the problem, I actually need the solution. So something like help me choose might be interior design versus interior decorator, right? That's someone who is serious because they're like, wait a second, I'm seeing these 2 different things. I need to know the difference before I actually take the next step. How do I get started? How much does interior designer cost? This is actually a search phrase, a search term that I pulled from my software that tells me stuff about search terms. So how much does interior designer cost? That's like a how do I get started? Like what I'm about to do this, right? I need a solution. Okay, so I've got this problem. What is the interior design process like? Where is this, you know, what does it look like? How can this solve my problems? I know what my problem is. How does this actually solve it? So the reason why I can tell you that this stuff is actually effective and valuable is I have proof, which is it comes in the form of Google's cost per click. So these are search terms that I'm showing you. If you were to buy these search terms using Google AdWords, you know, every search term has different pricing, right? Depending on how valuable Google sees it. So how much money basically is in that search term. So your first one here, interior design versus interior decorator. If someone were to purchase that, the estimated cost per click is $4.10. So Google is saying there is money in this search term. It has value. If you were to purchase in Google AdWords, how much does interior designer cost? $16.08 per click. So that search term has some like pretty serious value. Like Google's telling us, we know that people who click on this are looking to spend. The interior design process, $21.64 per click. So the reason I'm telling you this is not because you are going to go and buy these search terms in Google AdWords. You are going to think along these lines, and if you're an IP, you can certainly think along these lines. You know, you can be creative and think like, all right, what are the questions people are asking when they are like just about to buy my service, my product, whatever it is, and create content around it. So either it ends up ranking so people actually find it when they're searching it in your area because Google knows where you live and knows where the person lives and knows where you are. So they're going to show you results that are more local first. Or if someone is browsing around on different websites, different interior designers, they're going to see this content and be like, oh, thank God. they're answering this question before I even have to ask. And that is going to pull you, it's going to set you apart completely. You know, it's like you're a mind reader. So it's kind of magical. I will give you one quick example from my my own business. I have an older blog post that's about it's about black and white logos and why I start with black and white concepts before I move to color during the visual branding process. And I wrote the blog post as sort of an educational piece for my clients and my potential clients, because that's the process that I use. And here's a whole bunch of information why I do it. But it has started to rank me, not crazy good, but like decently for, quote, create your own logo, which has 8,100 searches per month, that's a good, big, huge search volume, at least for me, this would be. I could pursue that. I could optimize it, create a new post that really like optimizes for create your own logo, but I'm not going to do that because that is not an intention-based search for me. I don't want people searching for create your own logo and landing on my website. I don't have software that helps you create your own logo. If I did, that would be an intention-based search, and that would be worth creating content around. Like someone who has that should create that blog post. Not my target customer. I don't offer services for that. So you can see where keeping this in mind, it also warns you against creating certain content that is going to attract like, oh, 81 visitors. So if I got to number one for that, 8,100 visitors, that sounds good. It's not good. They're the wrong visitors. So you got to think about intention and how it relates to what you sell. The call to action for a blog post, or it could be a static page that's not a blog post for that type of content, but blog posts are nice for that stuff. Could be, and I'm going to be showing you a couple different calls to action. So one option would be on this one, because they are so close to being ready to purchase your services, a link to a relevant service if you have service pages, or if you don't have that, it could be your contact page. And I'm going to be talking towards the end of this talk about a little bit about like how to link and some tips and tricks for that. But that's what you'd want to think about doing. You might use a button so it's more prominent, you know, so it's really in their face. You want to absolutely, instead of just letting the article end and leaving them kind of like, oh, that was useful, make it just, I feel like I'm so repetitive with this. The whole thing with web design is to make everything easy, easy, easy. Figure out what you want them to do and make that like the easiest thing that's ever happened to them in every possible way. The easiest thing. Don't make them think at all. So you're going to say, all right, you're finished reading this. Click here. Do this. Easy. No thinking. So number 2, case studies. This is, I was talking to a current client and we were doing the thing that we do, which is to talk about the ideal client, you know, and we go into like an actual person who is a client, like someone that we wish we could like photocopy a million times, you know, like the ultimate person for them, the ultimate client. And I asked them, what are the first questions that she asked you? And one of the first questions that she asked was, who else do I know who has hired you? Now, when you are presenting your firm via a website, you cannot answer that question from behind a blog page. It is not possible, right? But what you can do is do your best to tell a story that sounds like it would be one of their friends. So the way that you can do, you have to know your client really well to do that, your ultimate client. You have to know who it is that you are looking for. In these case studies, I'm going to give you some tips here. You want to emphasize the characteristics of the client/project that you want more of. So as you're telling this story, as you're showing the pictures, you want to emphasize, like if this client lives, for example, in a certain town, or if they if you know that you do really well with dual income, no kids, or if you do better with families, if you're like really great with, you know, higher income families who really need to like have the whole like young children thing addressed in the design, then you want to talk about that. If that is a good client for you, then you really want to play that up. You want to tell a story with the client as a hero. And I was trying to explain this yesterday to someone, and I was like, oh, last night I was like, really, basically we're trying to say they're a genius for hiring you. You know, like they're the, like, oh, there's so, how clever of them to hire you. You know, you're really playing that up, because that's what you want the person who is reading this to see themselves in the story. So let's make them the hero, where they're like the genius that hired you. You know, it's not so much about you. You do need to convey how great your work is and how special you are. But in the end, this is about making their life better. And it's something that we have to keep in mind. This is a great opportunity for before and after shots. People love before and after shots. I mean, we all do, right? If you can grab before shots on your projects and get permission from the clients, you know, keeping in mind the same angles when you do the after shots, when you do the actual portfolio shots with your photographer, place them side by side. You're not going to do that in your portfolio. In general, you usually, unless your format's different, usually want your portfolio to just be like pretty, 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 right? But when you just have pretty, 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 you don't get that like amazing contrast of like what you did, you know? And when you're telling a story with this, you're really talking, you're able to talk about, like, when you're talking about the client as a hero, you start by talking about, like, what was the problem? What was the problem that he or she needed to solve? And then how did you actually solve it? And you can demonstrate with that before and after shots. If possible, you want to include a client quote. So if they've written you a testimonial, you want to just slip a piece of that, like the best part of it, right in there. That is what is called social proof. It kind of makes it real for people. It's going to round out the case study. So you can see how if you have this whole package here, it's going to really not answer that question of who else do I know who has hired you, but help them feel more comfortable. The call to action for that is, you know, it's a similar call to action, but because this person is a little bit further away than an intention-based search type of person maybe from hiring you, you could link to your portfolio. We know from Google Analytics, from looking at all the interior designer sites that we do, that your visitors do visit your portfolio. I mean, I'm sure you thought that. You were right. They do. They look at your about page, but a little bit more, they look at your portfolio. So to do them the favor of saying, like, you know, like, here's this whole case study, fabulous. Now go check out the rest of our work. The key there, when I tell you that, is, and this should always be the case, in your portfolio, you always want to have a call to action there. If someone is looking at your portfolio, you want to give them the opportunity to take the next step. So you should have a call to action there, whether it's a button, it probably should be a button, that allows them to actually contact you. And you want to make just to slip this in right now, you want to make your call to action the easiest, friendliest, most like best experience they've ever had in their life. So if your call to action, your main call to action for the site, you know, the one where they contact you, is for them to go to the contact page, you do not want to add any difficulties to that. So if you have a long contact form, for example, if you're asking the budget in the contact form, everybody has a different opinion on this. I know you want to kind of filter out the tire kickers and get the people out who like maybe don't have the budget. My personal opinion, and again, this is opinion, is that it is too early to be asking that. For one thing, a lot of people, if they haven't worked with an interior designer before, they don't know what their budget is, and that's going to be a really hard question. And number two, anything that slows, just from a user experience point of view, anything that slows people down, that is the question that's going to slow people down. And you want to ask like the easiest questions in the world on your contact form, like fun to answer, literally. Check boxes if you're going to do anything. Just make it super, super simple. Tell them exactly what's going to happen when they send it in. If you do like a free consultation, if you do a paid consultation, maybe don't get into that there. I could go back and forth on that, but just really keeping it easy. So that's a little sidebar. But the point is, if you're going to, one call to action is link to portfolio. And then if you're going to do that, make sure that in your portfolio, you link to the actual call to action for the site to get them to contact you or whatever it is. Value-based content. So, chalkboard. What with the chalkboard on this one? Okay, so how-to and tips, informative, inspiration, demonstration of expertise. Now, this is a category where you're probably saying to yourself, like, oh yeah, that's like basically what I do, right? That's what most blog content out there, particularly for interior designers, but really for most blogs, is falling under this category. We want you to do it better. So, one moment. Okay, so fewer posts. If you don't, unless you have a team, And I have clients like that who have a team and can really devote serious man and woman hours to like creating like robust, great posts, right? Like regularly, like a few times a week. Unless you have a team, you want to do better, more robust posts and fewer of them. Because although in like 2012, it was a thing to just sort of like let Google know that you had a heartbeat by just creating content, like, all right, 3 times a week, I'm just going to put out like something short, little something, picture, whatever. That is just not really going to do you much good now. It's, as far as like SEO goes, you're going to have a lot easier time ranking and being found when someone searches if you have a longer, more robust post. Also, it's more likely that it's going to be shared by people in your community. You want to be generous and you want to be valuable, value. But most importantly, you want to be very specific, and this comes back to brand. The way that you are going to actually create value-based content that is helpful to your readers and is going to like be shared and stand out and actually help define your brand is by thinking about your brand and writing content, as I said way back in the beginning of this, that supports the brand. So you want to take a stand on something. No more generic. Generic, it's just simply not helping you. The thing about, just to go back to the idea of branding, I know I look at a lot of interior designers' websites, and there's a lot of marketing that's based on, we do beautiful rooms. And that is not a brand. That is the minimum requirement to be an interior designer. So you can't base your brand on that, Remya. So you've got to, I'm sorry, but you have to come up with something else. You have to add to that. Because if you're not doing that, you're like literally not an interior designer. So, if all of your competitors, the good news is that all of your competitors are trying to market based on that generic sort of message, it's not going to be that difficult for you to separate yourself. So in your content, you want to think about your brand. And like I said, take a stand on something, on style, process, on the audience that you're speaking to, like a specific audience, on the budget that you're speaking to, like sort of like allude to the budget. Like, don't be talking to people who have very small budgets if you only want to work with people who only have very large budgets. Think about that in your content. Speak to them, Don't be doing how-tos that are like, cheapy if that's not your audience, your intended audience. Content could be based on a life event. So interior design is one of those things that can also happen because it's spurred on by a life event. Like, downsizing, for example, is a great example of it. So your content, if you work with people who are downsizing, if that's one of your things, which is totally a possibility, then your content should be around that. Like, people are going to share it then, people are going to care about it, they're going to see you as the expert. I always use this example, but would you rather go to, if you have a heart problem, a specialist or a general practitioner? You want to go to the specialist. So you want to be the specialist in whatever it is that you do. I think one of the things that happens is that people, like, I know it can be a little like, oh, I don't want to give away the farm, but you really don't need to worry about that. The thing with value-based content, the reality of it is, if you're giving away a lot of your tips on how to do things that are relevant to your services, then a certain percentage of the people are going to take that stuff and run with it and do it. And that's fine, because there's also a smaller percentage of people who are going to see you as the absolute expert in that and do not want to do it at all, or maybe thought they wanted to do it, but then realized they don't really want to do it. I know this is true with my business for sure. So when they go to actually like want to get this stuff done by a professional, you're the expert that they know. You're the one that they're going to think of. Important, I always say, you don't want to disappoint them. So don't throw out, and this is where the robust aspect of this comes in, don't throw out a great headline and then underwhelm them, as Michael Kors said on Project Runway. I'm underwhelmed. Don't do that, because immediately, and I see it all the time, like a really great headline, oh, this is going to be good. And then it's like just this little meh. The last thing you want to just start your relationship by disappointing them, you've lost them already. So you have to really follow through on your promises. And that's why I say fewer blog posts that are more robust is a better way to approach it. Alrighty. So the call to action for this. This is a person who is further away, typically, not always, but typically further away from purchasing your services. So if you are putting out a blog post that is about, let's say, how to set up a gallery wall, with examples of beautiful gallery walls. That is not someone who is searching for interior design process. They're in a different mindset, right? So what you want to do is capture their contact information so that when they are ready to hire you, you have stayed top of mind by nurturing the lead. And by that, I mean by sending them occasional emails. So I'm sure that some of you are doing this because it is not new. I'm not saying anything new, but there's a reason why people do it and businesses do it, because you get results from it. You do truly stay top of mind when they are going to eat for referrals. If they have a friend who wants, is looking for your services, even if they're not ready, you're there in their head, right? And you keep nurturing it, you keep establishing yourself as this great resource. So there are a couple ways to approach this. One is called a content upgrade, and I'm actually going to go into that in a minute when I get into the tech stuff, but it's a really interesting concept. And then the other one is just an attempting email sign up. So let's get into that in a second. I will go into the details. What do you need as the foundation? You need, for all of this stuff, you need a content management system, and that just means something that you can publish blog posts on. It's like a fancy word for not a website that you need to go to your web developer to have them make small changes. So like an HTML site, it would be called, like in one of those older sites.
Sorry.
You're right. So WordPress, Squarespace, anything where you can publish your own blog posts. Two, you also need an email marketing platform. So I often recommend MailChimp for those who are starting out because it is free for up to 2,000 subscribers and it's very easy to use, and there are a lot of plugins that go with it, and it's really simple. If you're going to get fancier, I am so in love with ActiveCampaign right now. They are more of a marketing automation platform, meaning that you can do really cool stuff. You can have, if you have multiple lead magnets, like if you had different blog posts and you were pulling people in using different sort of gifts to them, then it's easy to set that up with ActiveCampaign and still have one list and keep it organized. With MailChimp, you have to set up separate lists. It's just a lot more labor intensive. But again, MailChimp is free to start, so it's a good way. If you haven't done it at all, I do recommend that you start with MailChimp. ActiveCampaign is also very reasonably priced when you start out. It's $9 a month for the lowest rung on the whatever. So those are good ones. GetResponse, Aweber, there are a lot of choices. And then you need the ability to create a button and or a link on your website. So you probably know how to create a link on your website. I can't give you directions on how to create a button on your website. It depends on your site, but you would want to, I have faith in you. You can totally investigate that and figure it out, but you want to have that at your disposal, the ability to create a button. So talking about calls to action. So let's talk about that first call to action, a link to a particular page. So this covers the first two categories that we spoke about. A couple of tips. So this is whether you're linking to your portfolio page or directly to your service page or to your contact page or whatever it is. In general, this is a UX thing, user experience thing, that is advice that should be taken for all of your website. Use an action color for all links and buttons. Anytime you want someone to do something, it should be one particular color that stands out enough that they can see it and is not used anywhere else, meaning it is not used for your headlines, your headings, because then they're going to think they can click on them. What happens is people hit your website and that you immediately start training them. It takes seconds. You immediately start training them to look for the action color. It's true. It really happens. You will confuse them if you use the same color on your links and buttons as you do elsewhere. So choose an action color. It makes things easier for your visitor. And it should be part of your brand, part of your palette that you use. Link within the content where relevant. So this is an SEO thing too. You can link all sorts of ways, right? You can put a button at the end. You can have a little sentence at the end. You can have one at the beginning and the end. You can link within the content. And in general, you should, even if we're not talking about our main call to action, just like a side note, you want to link to other blog posts. You want to create a web within your content. It's good for SEO and it's good for the people. So this is something that you would do if you've been blogging for a while. You can go back to your old blog posts and just start interlinking them, and it's going to create better engagement on your website. That's sort of a side issue. In general, you still do want to make your call to action, the thing that you want them to do, the most prominent thing. That's why a button can be nice. It's a little strong, you know, like you gotta, but it can be good. You know, sometimes it's good to go a little, you're just helping them, you know, you're just helping them to know where to go. People appreciate that. As I said, use a button at the end for the blog, of the blog post for like the most punch. Now, call to action if it's a content upgrade or email sign up. Just to get this out there, sign up for our newsletter, doesn't work. And anyone who's tried it probably knows that you're not getting a ton of signups. Nobody wants a newsletter anyway, because what is a newsletter? It doesn't even sound tempting or interesting or good. So don't do that. You have to convince them. So you have some choices. You can have a newsletter sign up that has no bribe. So just is basically like sign up for our newsletter or sign up for monthly updates or sign up for, you have a branded name for the thing that you send out once a month or whatever it is, sign up for our thing. Here's why. And you have to seriously work on your copy to make it like, yeah, I mean, I want that, you know, like tell them what you're going to send them and it better be good because, you know, you know how it is. Like how many things do you sign up for? It has to be good. Two, a brand that they want a piece of. So if you have built your brand in such a way that it is clear who you are as a business, what you do, and how freaking interesting you are, then, I mean, I just recently signed up for Milk Makeup. Like, it's just so, like, young and I'm not that young, you know? So it's, like, so young and sexy, and, like, I was like, oh, I just want, like, to see what they'll send me. Like, it's just so, like, their branding is, like, so, like, it's just pastel and awesome. And they didn't promise me anything, but I still signed up for their newsletter. I mean, it happens, like, but it's their brand. It's well established, you know, it's cool. They've got coolness. How do you establish coolness? I don't know. You just have to be cool. Okay. And then this classic, which you've certainly seen, a gift. So, or a bribe of some sort. So it could be the, you know, sign up for, and this would be the type of thing that could go in general in your blog sidebar. So it's next to every blog post. It could be in a hello bar at the top of the screen. It could be a pop-up, you know, but like not the kind that's annoying. I have advice on that. Don't do pop-ups that come up 2 seconds after you arrive on the site. They don't even know you yet. They don't want to sign up for your thing. You have to get them to know them first. If anything, exit intent is what I recommend, which is basically once the viewer's mouse is like sliding off to leave, it's like a last minute thing like, hey, you're done reading. Do you want this? Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of platforms that allow for that. We'll get into the tech in a second. But yeah, so basically you're saying like, hey, sign up for our monthly updates and you'll also get this like free guide to this thing, this access to this video about this thing, this link to this webinar that we did on this, whatever it is, toolkit, blah, 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 blah. Whatever it is, the key is to make it something that is very, very relevant to your audience, your brand. If you make it vague, if you're like, sign up for our general tricks for nice interior design, that is too vague. You need to appeal to the person that you like as a client, the specifics of them. What kind of questions do they ask you? Details about their life. What kind of problems can you solve for them? What kind of problem can you solve for them? Something that they're going to be like, oh no, I need that, or I'm going to feel like I'm missing out. Content upgrade. I feel like I'm going a little long here. Okay, so content upgrade is a really awesome thing. So if you're doing like a value-based blog post, you're presenting a bunch of great information, right? A content upgrade is something that takes the information and expands on it. So it elevates it. And I like content upgrades that make the information more actionable So it could be like a checklist that makes you, that allows you to like get the thing done that you've been describing, like something that really like makes the viewer able to like do it, and you can say something like, I've done this in the past, like, hey, don't just bookmark this, enter your email and we'll send you a checklist so you can actually do it, So that's one way to get their email out of their hand. It could be, like I said, like videos, anything that like supports and expands on the information. So it's like a bonus. It can be really effective. So how to do a content upgrade or email sign up. This is where we start to get into a little bit of tech. You'll notice my picture there. Time or money, people. You got to spend something. So time or money. Money, hire a developer for a few hours and ask them to set it up. This kind of thing is not difficult to integrate for someone who's done it a million times. Seriously. Or set it up yourself, which is totally another option. So in Squarespace, there's a newsletter block. I don't work on Squarespace myself, but I recommend it to people all the time who are doing more DIY sites. It's less customizable. There are less options in general for expansion than WordPress, but it's good if you're just doing like a brochure site, it's just information, and you just want to have one list and you're not going to get fancy. Newsletter block. WordPress. There are plugins for every email marketing platform so you can work with WordPress without having to know any code. So yes, there will be a little bit of a learning curve, but it's just a matter of like, hey, I'm going to use MailChimp. There are like 60 zillion MailChimp plugins. Always, whenever you're looking at plugins, just go for the ones that have the highest ratings and the most ratings and have been updated recently. Those are my tips, because you don't want to just pick a random plugin that was last updated 2 years ago. You could have security issues. So updated recently, high ratings as possible, and a lot of ratings established. And then for any website, if you're using some other type of website, SumoMe is nice. You could just put their code in or have someone put their code in, and then there's like this whole suite of things that they do, including being able to add an email sign up where it hook up with MailChimp and all of the main email marketing platforms. But they also do cool things like heat maps, which is where you can like see where people are clicking and like spy on them. It's awesome. And they have nice share buttons, like all sorts of stuff. So SumoMe can be nice. Tip to deliver your freebie. If you are sending a freebie, and that could mean the content upgrade, or it could mean you're like, hey, sign up for my general email list and get my blah, 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 whatever, then use the final thank you email. Just deliver it via that. So when you're in let's say you're in MailChimp and you're working through like, all right, so I want this confirmation email to say this, and then I want I want to use the final thank you email, and I want it to include this picture of my thing, and that picture will link to the PDF that I'm giving or whatever it is. All of that stuff, again, no code necessary. A little bit of a learning curve because you're going to have to figure it out. But MailChimp is so, it's just such a standard that, and even like Aweber or GetResponse, same thing. There's such standards now that you can get the information if you are having trouble with it. And again, no code. That's the important thing. So, again, Nicole Heymer. If you want, I am going to be creating, I have not done it yet, but I am going to be creating some notes for this webinar. So this is my way of trying to get your contact information. Just be open about that, because this is the stuff that we're talking about. So if you go to curioelectra.com/ASID, then you can just enter in your first name and email address, and I will send you, I'm going to put together some notes. I'm going to try and make them at least a little bit pretty, covering some of the resources that I can recommend for you, a little bit of the tech stuff, and maybe a couple notes on branding. And then what that will also do is it'll sign you up for my, not often, because I don't blog often. I do big blogs and I don't do them often. That's my way of going about it. So I will send you a notification every time that I send out a blog. You're not going to get like mobbed with emails from me, trust me. So that is it. Do we have any questions?
Okay, time for questions. If anybody has questions, please type that in the chat box, and we will take them. Nicole is here to answer. Okay, cool. I'm watching for the questions, and I had a question. I'm actually going back to look at where's that question now. Oh, so one of the things that you mentioned were when you're creating content, do it based on the search words, right? So is there a way to search in Google and find out what those search words are? Any tips on those?
Yeah, so you can go to the Google AdWords, like it's basically like you're registering for Google AdWords, but you're not actually going to place any ads, and they have like a keyword tool, so you can see what kind of searches, like what the volume is for searches. As far as getting the estimated cost per click, I use paid software for that, but that's a great question. So what I'm going to do is make a note, and if I can find a free answer for that, then I will include that in my webinar notes.
Oh, cool. Thank you.
Someone asked, can we get a printout via email of the content? Yeah, so I can, if you go sign up at that landing page, then I will send you the notes from this webinar, yeah.
Wendy Cruz, do you see her question? You mentioned
a good frequency to blog. I mean, when I'm working with clients who are like, all right, let's just do like what we can here, I recommend going, I like once per month as like a minimum, although it's so funny, like I'm such a hypocrite, like I don't follow that because I just really like go for it when I make them, but I recommend once per month because it allows you to send out an email to your list once per month. So you've got that consistency there, and it's not overwhelming. Twice per month is nice. And I know that there's definitely advice out there that would conflict with that. People would say like, no, it has to be like once a week or 3 times a week or whatever. I'm just trying to be real. You know, I do my own website and blog at least once a month, but I am so busy that I find it difficult keeping up with my blog. And do you believe in ghostwriters or paid PR firms to write our blogs? Sure, absolutely. As long as you are keeping control of your brands. So, and the quality of them. Absolutely, yes. If you've got people who are writing stuff that is like of the quality that works for you, but yeah, I would definitely, you want to be the one, or someone who works for you, who's got an idea of what's going on. Someone has to be keeping it, or maybe the PR firm knows, you know, maybe they're guiding you with that, but someone has to be guiding the bus when it comes to keeping it relevant to the brand. The problem with paid content can be, and this is not always the case, but if you go like just cheap, churn it out content, then it gets too generic, and then it's honestly, it's not even helping you. And actually, like there are horror stories of like really cheap content writers or SEO companies also, because content is SEO in 2017, right? Just putting content on your website that they're putting on other people's website, which will actually get you penalized, which will do the opposite of even helping you. So you have to be careful. But yeah, the right ghostwriter, somebody you're keeping an eye on, it's totally fine. Our website includes the ability to add a blog page. What is the benefit of using WordPress instead? So it really just depends. What kind of platform are you using, Danielle? I'm just curious. That cow. Oh, that's the hosting company, right? Is it like their website builder? Some sort of proprietary website builder that they have? So I would just want to, Weebly, gotcha, okay. So I would just want to make sure of a couple things. Number one, it has to be responsive for mobile. Weebly, I don't know, they were a little late to the party on that. So I would make sure that it's responsive for mobile. If you don't know, if you're like hearing me ask that question and you're like, I'm not really sure, Google has a tool, I'm gonna send it in the notes. Google has a tool to tell you if it is responsive. This matters a lot for SEO, and it matters for the people. Awesome. Okay, so number one, so it's fulfilling that requirement. That's great. I'll still include that because that's useful for people. But yeah, so if it's fulfilling that requirement and it is allowing you to, like, ultimately, if you want to do anything fancier, you know, like Weebly has fewer options than WordPress. WordPress is much more customizable. So if you are planning on expanding your website in the future, and like if you're gonna like I don't know, it's just like more customizable. That's all I can say because it just is. But if you're happy with, you're like, all right, it's an informational site and we have a blog and we have an email sign up and that's all we're ever going to need, which is totally possible, then yeah, you can stick with Weebly. As long as it's loading quickly, you want to make sure that it's loading. I'm gonna actually put that page load tester. That's a good tool too. As long as it's loading quickly and it's responsive, which you say it is, then it's fine. As long as it's serving your needs.
So what are your thoughts on like getting a different site for blogging versus blogging on your own website?
I think that's a bad idea.
Or blogging on the website?
No, blogging on a different site is a bad idea. So do you mean like, when you say a different site, you mean like, oh, I have a website and then I got a WordPress site for blogging?
Yeah.
Yeah. So from an SEO and even sort of from a branding perspective, you're diluting yourself.
Right. Yeah. And I'm thinking if you're interlinking, it's easier if it is on your website. This way you're interlinking within it, right? So you don't want somebody to go away from it.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, as far as, things start kicking, there's a million considerations with that. But one thing is Google looks at your bounce rate. So, and considers that when you're being ranked, like how long are people, when they hit your page, how long are they staying before they leave your site? Mm-hmm. And that's confusing if they're leaving your site to go to your site.
Right.
You're sending the wrong message to people. Don't add high resolution photos on website, low res. Yes. So Robin is right. You really want to optimize them. And you could do that while you're uploading them. For example, WordPress has a way to size them when you're uploading them, or you can optimize them before you add them to your website. But yes, that absolutely affects page load time and the experience of your user. So that's for SEO purposes, and then also for the people, because if it takes too long to load, they will leave. Studies say it's just true. Right. So yes, great point, Robin. Absolutely. Anything else?
Okay. So this is, if anybody has any more questions, please make sure that you ask fast. This is the last call for questions.
Yes, read above. Nancy, did you have a question above? Oh, you have an example of a company that does this well, and can you share it with us? Yeah, you know what? Houseoffunk.com. I was just talking about them before. Who is your favorite blogger? Oh gosh. I don't know. I don't really have a favorite blogger. I really wish I had an answer for that right now.
Oh my God, I'm like really, there's one lady who started with branding with her paint. What's her name? Oh my God, I can't remember.
She what?
She branded by saying that she's like this person to go to for the paint. And she has one of the chalk paint. No, not the chalk paint. There was another lady. I just can't remember her name now. I don't know why. Audrey Franks? No, I have somebody else in my mind, but she has a lot of these freebies out there. So I went in and I signed up for her newsletter. So I sort of like follow her. I just can't remember her name. Is not coming to me in my mind. I'm so sorry about that. Also, Rona had asked about the one question about the photographs. So in the blogs that you're doing, can you actually use pictures? I believe this is what she's trying to ask. Can you also use pictures that are not just your work and get something like maybe from Pinterest or something else?
The eternal question for interior designers. Yeah. So, okay. Yes, you always, like, if you have a big, crazy portfolio and you have a lot to pull from, then, like, by all means, use original photos. You cannot, and you guys probably know this, you cannot grab photos from like Google Images that belong to other people. You could get in trouble. You could get fined. So
what about if you're giving them the credit?
Doesn't matter. Technically, does not matter. It's that can be like if you contact them, yeah. You can't just grab, yeah. You cannot legally do that. Do people do it? Yes, they do. Could you get in trouble? Yes. Yes, you could. So you have a couple of options. One, you can contact people and say, hey, I would like to feature your photo on blah, blah. Most times, I mean, I've done it with photographers and they have said yes, because, a backlink is nice and there's nothing wrong with that. Mm-hmm. Two, House has the ability to, they have an embed code where you can grab images from House and embed them, so you can use those images as examples.
Mm-hmm.
You can use those examples, and the problem is they're kind of like, they're only 500 pixels wide, so it's like not ideal, and then you're kind of giving some of your, they all link back to House, like, so it's not, there's no perfect answer. I think Pinterest might even have, I don't actually know, you can't quote me on this, but Pinterest, check to see if they have some sort of embed option also, because then it's like, basically Pinterest, if they do it, House definitely, you're signing your life away, as you guys all probably know, when you join House, and you're basically saying like, I don't even own my stuff anymore. And it's crazy because, I mean, not literally, but like, you're saying that they're allowed to do that they're letting, you can let people embed stuff. You're giving that permission. So you're able to use that from other people as an example. And then the other thing you can do is stock photos. So if you are doing it, there are interior design stock photos if you're looking for an example of something that you're specifically trying to illustrate. If you're doing lifestyle pieces, tons of stock photos. You know, if you're talking about something that's related to interior design more loosely, you can always find, even like Unsplash is really good for free stock photos. Vendors, great point, Danielle. Yeah, vendors. Yeah, ask permission. It's always best. And it helps build a relationship. When you ask permission, you know, like when you reach out, it's just another opportunity to build a relationship. So. Right.
And Terry mentions Amy Howard as a paint person. That's not the person who I had in mind, but I'm going to look her up too.
How do people find your blog, Rana? My blog or your blog?
No, so if you're blogging, I believe that's what she's trying to say. Like you're like probably like 500,000 people. How are you going to be finding your blog?
So that's where creating unique content comes in, right? So yes, you're sharing it on social media, and yes, you're sending it out to your email list as you're building your email list. And then those people, if you create something that is worth sharing, that is specific enough that it's worth sharing, then you have the possibility of people actually sharing it. But yeah, you want to post it to all of your social media accounts. If you are talking about something that is specific enough that it is relevant to like a particular group of people, there's the option to join, let's say like Facebook groups, LinkedIn groups, whatever it is, become part of that community, and then you're able to drop in your links if it's appropriate, you know, like, but that's the kind of thing that is like these are particular instances. But none of this will ever happen unless you define your brand and make it interesting enough, and make your content interesting enough and not generic, that people are actually, I mean, think of the successful blogs. They've got something that you can grab onto, you know, you can describe what they are to another person. It has to be that specific. Should you share your blog on Facebook? I did a blog on why hire an interior designer, posted on Facebook. It got 27. Yes, of course, definitely share it on Facebook. And the other thing, that's awesome, Rana, and you can totally, why hire an interior designer is like a fabulous thing to write about. Like, I'm so glad you wrote about that. It's so like hits that sort of like, it's kind of an intention-based post, you know? It's like you're hitting someone who's like really thinking about it versus thinking about like how to reupholster their dining room chair. You know, there's a difference between those two mindsets. So I think that's great. But no, it got 27. Oh, you don't mean clicks to your site. You mean it was viewed by 27 people because it was on your business page and Facebook changed their algorithm. Yeah. Okay, so fewer congratulations. I'm sorry to hear that. So Facebook, as we all know, it used to be that you would post stuff on your business page and like all of your followers would see it and everything was amazing, right? And then they changed their algorithm like years ago now, and now it's basically pay to play. So the other thing that you can consider is doing Facebook ads, and you can do Facebook ads for like $5 a day and get your blog in front of very specific audiences, like people who live within like this area, who are this age, who have this income bracket, like all that kind of stuff. So that's one way to push out if you have a really good blog post, experiment with it. You know, it's kind of fun. You can do it for so little money that like, you know, it's not really that big a deal. But yeah, the way that they do it is they show it to like 2 people. And then if like one of those people clicks on it, then maybe they'll show it to like 4 more people, and it expands out like that. So if people actually engage with it, that's how they sort of like check for the value of the post. So if you have a post that is like really successful in that people engage with it and like it, so that other people, you know, how it is, you know, it works, then more people will start seeing it. I've had it happen, but it's like, you know, you just try your best on that. In Facebook ads can be fun, can be a fun way to experiment.
All right. Okay, I think we need to wrap it up since we are so out of time. But Nicole, this was like really such a pleasure. We had such a beautiful, wonderful session, and you have been so generous with your time and so much content that you shared with us. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Remya.
And also, if you guys have seen our the logo for the TechTalk, oh my God, this is like really something. So I was looking to do a logo, and I spent a couple of hours thinking about it and trying to see, okay, what can I do? And I was just going to write Tech Talk or something like that. And Nicole, within half an hour, she gave me an idea. She actually put the logo in. So this lady over here, she is like super talented. There's no doubt. And of course, now all of you have already seen how good she is. So if you guys want to have her back, let me know in an email. This way, hopefully, we will try to get her back again for another session. I just want to also remind you the next Tech Talk is going to be about LinkedIn strategies, and it's going to be on February 15th. So make sure you mark that on your calendar. And again, Nicole, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Remya. And thank you, everyone. Thanks for coming.
Yes, and thank you all so much, because I know time is so valuable today, and all of you have spent a good amount of time with us. And I hope you guys had fun and you really learned a lot of good stuff today. So that's it. So from ASID, signing off, I'm Remya Warrior. Bye-bye.